I just made a video where I saw that Griffin Gaming was saying, well, there's no need to buy an Xbox Series console. You could just buy yourself a PlayStation 5 bundled with Astrobot and blah, 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 blah. And none of these folk so far that are saying stuff like this are talking or mentioning the hidden cost of these consoles. Whenever I talked about building a gaming PC to rival the consoles, I always pointed out to these hidden costs. In fact, if you actually want to see something that I think is very, I don't know how to put it, funny, is I think about maybe a year ago, it was like February of last year, I started making these little tables where I was looking at, buying yourself a PlayStation 5 console, buying yourself a controller, getting your subscription to play online, and the premium cost of games if you wanted to buy maybe 4 games a year, and coming up with a number around $660 or so, and saying that you could build a PC that could last you perpetually for the rest of the generation and even take you into next gen. And whenever you needed to do an upgrade, it was just maybe, a couple pennies and you could swap those particular, components or items and leverage the elasticity that's in the PC gaming market. What I mean by that is, for instance, let's say you decide that you want to go ahead and upgrade your CPU, you want to get more power, you want to be able to go in there and push out more frames, right? You can pretty much go in and you can take maybe a new CPU that's probably maybe better than yours, and you can follow its pricing and eventually get to the point where you can buy this CPU for a small amount of money. For instance, if you notice, this CPU that I'm just pointing out here, at the time that it would have launched, let's go all the way to its 2-year mark. At the time that it would have launched, it was around 270. Now, if you basically look very carefully, that number has dropped significantly at numerous times. In fact, at one point, it was about $194. And that's the only thing that's going to come out of your pocket. So if you traded in maybe your old CPU for dirt cheap, perhaps $50 to $100, well, you look at the differential in this particular regard, and it's a drop-in upgrade. I saw something else that was very interesting. Nib95 is pitting the PlayStation 5 Pro console against the Xbox Series X 2TB Galaxy Special Edition. Now, this is actually very funny because there is no console right now that is on this particular, earth that has and gives its gamer more value than the Xbox console. This is coming from a PC gamer. This is coming from somebody where if I was to show you the kind of machinery that I game with, you would say I'm crazy. But I can already look at the value proposition anywhere and say, yes, anybody who wants a value proposition in terms of paying minimally to play more games and have access and options, and you're on the console, it is definitely this particular option. But I don't even recommend the Xbox Series X in terms of consoles. I always recommend the Series S because you will get your money's worth. And now they're raising the prices. But I thought this post was very enlightening because you're going to see what I think is a very, very significant amount of errors that have been positioned here. First, Nib95 writes and says, for enthusiast console gamers, first of all, I don't think that you can actually classify anyone as an enthusiast console gamer when the Xbox Series X and the PS5 Pro are rocking similar CPU SKUs, except that one is lightly overclocked. From a hardware perspective, it's literally like buying, say, an i7 7700 versus an i7 7700K. The difference is not even, in fact, that's actually too much of a leap in terms of the difference that you can get, because overclocking would require you to go ahead and then spend more money on your cooling solution. So first of all, let's go ahead and kind of put this myth to rest that you call enthusiast console gamers. It's not a thing. You said the PS5 Pro is looking like a bargain right now, LOL. Oh man, you guys are about to see some economic fallacies here. It says the PS5 Pro 2TB with 7700 XT to 7800 XT performance? Hold up. The 7700 XT, 7800 XT performance is akin to, in terms of raw raster, the RTX 4070. Did Nib95 try to slip one past anybody that's not paying attention with this 4070 argument that we already put to rest by citing an AMD-based GPU? Huh. No, sir. You're trying, sir. $699 no disk drive. That's the problem. The no disk drive. Series X Glitter Edition 2TB with 6700 performance, 729. Now you already know from a hardware perspective, he's clearly obfuscating. Do you know how I know? I'm going to show you. You see, console warriors don't care about the consumer at the end of the day. They're more interested about fighting some stupid digital internet war, right? That they'll never, ever tell you or take the time to show you exactly what this is all about. And from the perspective of somebody who's been looking at the hardware, I can already tell you that he's obfuscated the truth because we know exactly, or at least what the similarities in performance of the Series X looks like and the PS5. Digital Foundry was able to get its hands on the boards, similar boards used in the Xbox Series X and similar board used in the PS5. In fact, in China, let me go ahead and give this story very well so that you guys can see how this gentleman, having a body of information in front of him, has skipped it and is now trying to twist the truth. They had defective boards that were used to, during the production of the Xbox Series X. So what did they do? They disabled the graphics portion of it, added the PCIe ports, and soldered on all of these different, re-engineered it basically, but it still carries the CPU capacity of the Xbox Series X. And they made them desktop kits. They also did something similar with the same or similar units, because they're AMD devices, that were used for the PS5 as well. Now, the PS5 Pro has slight differences, but its difference in terms of performance is not significant enough to warrant having to basically topple over the Series X, because it's AMD that's making them, so you can already understand what performance to expect. But he has now basically come here to pretty much provide what I think is a false comparison in terms of this particular CPU and GPU. Now, another thing too is the CPU inside of a gaming PC is in some sense already better because you get to choose it. And then he said, Greedy Tweets looking suspect now. So he puts a Galaxy Black Glitter Edition with a PS5 Pro console with no disk drive, where you have to buy a stand, and calls it $699 and gives it an inflated performance that is somewhat similar to the 4070 in raster power, and claims that it is a better value. Ladies and gentlemen, these console warriors don't care about your wallet. They only care to win digital arguments that are based in fiction and fantasy. And so when he put it up here, he gets called out. After getting called out, is no longer speaking and, is at some point quiet, because it's insane to even think that this is one comparison to go with. Of which, what's crazy is I will never, ever even suggest any of these consoles to you, because I think that they are both a scam. Oh, yes. I am saying it now because these things are not worth your money. Why? You cannot even upgrade them. It's almost akin, even for a PC gamer, to look at something like this, a desktop kit, right? And say, well, I want to go ahead and buy a desktop kit. Well, you already have shortened yourself because you can never upgrade this CPU. It can never go further or get more powerful. This is already soldered in as basically, it's device design. You can upgrade your GPU, but you're always bottlenecked by your CPU. This is pretty much a similar thing to what happened to the PS5 and the PS5 Pro. Now, let me give you another picture of this whole thing, because some people sometimes, they're not, I don't think this really does, hit the nail on the head as much. For instance, this PC that I'm making this video from, right? Its CPU is a Ryzen 9 3900X. It is on the AM4 platform, NVIDIA's old platform from, a number of years ago. In this particular platform, I can upgrade this CPU, and I think the best, not like I know that the best CPU within this platform is a 5950X. So I still have a pathway to still upgrade and make this computer even run more efficiently and be able to maximize the entirety of the platform on there. For the GPU, it's an RTX 4080, and if I want it, I can go as high as any PCIe supporting GPU will let me, and I will get more performance. In the case of a console, you don't have this luxury. You're only stuck with what is given to you. Hence, anybody that tells you that a console proposition actually makes more sense across the board and is trying to compare it with a PC is clearly obfuscating and clearly telling you what is not true. And I think this particular conversation basically brings itself to roost, where you realize that you're better off, if you want and if you choose, and if you ever got tired and sick of what the console makers are doing, to go ahead and put together a PC build for yourself. because with that PC build, you can modify almost every individual unit to make the build a reality. And you can basically move within the ebbs and within the flows and get yourself hardware that's going to play your games. This talk about a 7800 XT, can you imagine somebody comparing a PS5 Pro with a 7800 XT, an item which is in many respects much better than the PS5? The PS5 and the 7800 XT in terms of design and in terms of time, they were never, if you get what I mean, let me go to the GPU side. They were never even made within the same period in terms of, comparisons and stuff. It's insane that anybody would think that right now getting yourself a PlayStation 5 is going to net you anything close to a 7800 XT in that regard. That's insane, if you get what I mean. And so if you even think about it overall, the 7800 XT has had its own price increases and all of the above. So I really do think that right now, the entirety in terms of talking about the console value proposition without talking about the games is just a fugazi at the end of the day. I've been talking online with a lot of people out here, and we've been having conversations about the $80 price tag, which is also another thing that if you went to go ahead and buy yourself a console right now and made it your primary source of gaming, you're going to be eating that price tag. Gamers, this is the time to hedge yourself. Console wars are dead. They've been dead for a very long time. I've been saying this for the longest time, that these console wars are quite idiotic at the end of the day. For people to try and come out here and start talking about how one console is better than the other when AMD makes both consoles. Now think about this even. If anybody wasn't even thinking about this, why would AMD want to go ahead and undermine either PlayStation or Xbox within the same generation? And why would PlayStation even want to go make a much more expensive SKU in the middle of the generation, causing more problems for its developers? This is why Mark Cerny came out and talked about flopflation. This is just the reality. And this shows the disingenuity that's being spread out here. And somebody asked him and said, you showed a special edition of the console from Xbox. Should we try and be more disingenuous? He said, can you show me where I can buy the non-special edition? And people asked him and said, you can buy different, SKUs of the Xbox Series. And he's banking on a 2 terabyte SKU for storage. Bro, storage? You can never get enough storage. Like, you can always either upgrade storage in some cases, or in some cases you could just delete files or delete games on a console. It's not like you're storing anything, even there. If I showed you how much storage I have on this particular, build, you'd be surprised because, for me to tell you that I don't have enough storage is probably going to go ahead and shock you. But that's just the reality. You're gonna always need storage at every given time. Like I got, I think this hard drive is like a 512 gig. But I got a 1 terabyte, I got a 2 terabyte, I got a 2 terabyte, I got another 1, terabyte SSD, and it's not enough. You'll never have enough in terms of storage and in terms of places to store your data and to store your games. So again, man, this is the time for the gamers to start paying attention more and more to the economic factors regarding gaming. I'll get out of your hair. Talk to me in the comment section. Appreciate you guys' time and audience. Hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.